Lala! Come there. Summer is indeed a special time in Sweden. For me, many mornings started like this, going out with Nala and watching her running through the grain fields, jumping almost like a rabbit. A pretty good start of the day. But this summer brought something else, very special into my life, something I did not expect and something I think will stay with me forever. I never imagined that playing the second half, summer 2026, would become something that in many ways changed me as a person. These 9 wonderful people I got to know so much better through their stories. And it's almost impossible to summarize what they shared. So I thought, what if I had to choose just one moment from each life story? Just one highlight. Which one would it be? If we start with Pontus, so he had such an exciting life, living in places so far as Faroe Islands, meeting Ingmar Bergman and being so open and vulnerable in telling us about his extraordinary near-death experience that in many ways changed his life. But if I have to choose one moment again, I keep coming back to this one, when Pontus talks about how we could transcend scarcity. He literally shines when he is talking about the possibilities we have when doing things together. And perhaps that became one of the themes of my summer.
But if you look at it on a collective level, I think that the potential development of humankind as a collective is, we're using a fraction of our possibilities. And if you look at the world today, we live in a world that could help us actually live in abundance. There is enough for us all here, but we are running on a scarcity program. We're running on internal programs that it is about me, and that we're gonna, the richest person when we die is the winner. What if that is not true? What if this system we live in is something that we can transcend or break out of and actually realize that we're in this together?
With Marie-Louise, it was yet another full hour of learning for me. But here, choosing one moment was actually quite easy. She spoke about the childhood sexual abuse she had experienced. Her story is deeply personal, but tragically far from unique. And the scale of it was something I could never have imagined. And as I listened, I began to understand much more deeply why constant remembering was the theme she chose. To constantly remember her own value, her inner core, and perhaps one of the most important journeys we all have in life, to remember who we truly are, reconnect with the strength that is already within us, and heal.
I was sexually abused by a neighbor, and this was like now in my life now, it's something that I worked with a lot. But I can see what happened to me in that it was like this became my secret. And I think it's 1 out of 4 this happens to, in your childhood. And if you're lucky, you get to tell somebody about it and you can work with it. But I just didn't tell anybody. I got so scared probably and felt ashamed maybe or something. So this became my secret and for a really long time. And then I worked with it in therapy and such. And now I feel I can see how this has impacted my life in ways where I get scared or feel intimidated.
So much fun with Tina during this hour. The fascinating Enneagram framework, which I had the opportunity to learn a little more about. And then there was that beautiful smile when we discussed why she was never a crocodile, I love this moment. So moving a lot, and even if it was banking, but moving and doing it.
Yeah.
We have a saying in Brazil, Tina, that we say, crocodile that stands still becomes a bag.
That's
So
a good.
it's a good one. And
Yeah.
I can see in front of me this young teen doing career, enjoying life. The warmth of Leonardo from the start of our conversation was amazing. What a treat to meet this old childhood friend once again. I was deeply moved by the Kafka-like judicial battle he's living through right now. And we laughed a lot too, including a monkey interruption that unfortunately we did not catch on camera. And then there is Leonardo's incredible ability to innovate and challenge even some of the best neurologists in the world.
And I asked him if it was, according to his knowledge, it would be possible to, for instance, to ride a bike and to pedal this bike and to play music at a different rhythm. And he was doing some, not, of course, not exactly the same kind of experiments, but he would be able to predict or to have an idea, because he did some temporal study, some on timing, on movement, and so that was his area. So I asked him, and he said, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible to ride a bike at one rhythm and to play music at a different. I think you proved him wrong. It's a lock.
Aminah gave us yet another reminder, like Marie-Louise did, of how sometimes a second half starts very early in life. Sometimes through traumatic experiences that change our lives forever. Her book made such a strong impression on me. There are books where we learn something, and then there are books that change how we see life. Aminah's book is one of them.
One day I'm just an ordinary girl with an ordinary family, and the next day I live in an orphanage, and then I have a father in prison, and I have no mother, and I'm placed in foster care. So things just shifted very dramatically for me, and overnight I lost everything, all the safety I knew, my house, my room, my things, my parents, all of that. And the reason why I chose to name it The Girl Who Was Left Behind is maybe the closest to the Swedish translation, is because I didn't get any help. I always felt that the adults were supposed to work. Their work was to help me, and they didn't do that. They didn't dare to ask me how I felt or support me in that. So I was very alone with all my thoughts and emotions around these very complex and complicated events that continued to occur.
And Steve's book is yet another must-read in every sense. I learned about the importance of laughter and what home really means. And yes, you laugh a lot when you meet Steve. You discover also the ingredients of a life well lived. And by the end, you may find yourself thinking, I want to be that Steve. I certainly did. But his story also made me reflect on my own life and on the things I would never want to exchange. In particular, the warmth and closeness I was so lucky to have with my parents. To understand why Steve's story made me think about that, you need to watch the whole episode or read the book. And there is a curious connection with Pontus. Pontus met Ingmar Bergman, an encounter that in some ways changed his life. But Steve also crossed paths with some extraordinary people. And with one rather extraordinary, but not admirable at all, quite the opposite, the dictator Idi Amin, who once made Steve race with him in a swimming pool. And I suspect We might not have Steve here today to tell us this story if he hadn't had the good sense to let that dictator win. And then there was someone truly iconic he met, someone who would have turned 100 this year, but who left us far too early. Marilyn Monroe.
I was always taking him out for a walk. I'm walking down 57th Street between 2nd and 1st Avenue. Who is coming up the street but Marilyn Monroe? And there she is with the hair, with the skirt, with that wiggle, with that smile. She stops and talks to me and pets my dog Spinach, which was a long dachshund. She asks me the dog's name. She asks me my name, makes a big fuss over me and the dog. And then she goes out and she hails a taxi. She gets into the taxi, closes the door, and winds down the window and blows me a kiss. Can you believe this? Marilyn Monroe blows me a kiss. And that was the greatest day of my life. Everything is downhill after that. Nothing can compare to that.
Henning's life is rather close to mine in many ways. We are the same age. We both decided to retire a little earlier. We both worked for many years for large companies. We both have an adopted daughter. But from this fascinating conversation, perhaps contentment is what made me think the most. Because it's an area where I need to learn more myself.
But people wander through life on the chase for the next achievement, finish something, go to the next place, buy another house. It's a stress in itself, and that's what I mean with strive for contentment. Be happy with what you have. I'm very privileged. I realize that. That's why I also want to give back something to the community. But I'm not striving for a massive big place somewhere else or go somewhere else. I'm content with where I am. This is where I want to be. And I think you start to realize, you pinch your arm and realize how lucky you are, better off than most people in the world.
With Ida, there are so many stories and adventures. I laughed a lot, especially when she told me about Mongolia, going there with this wonderful idea of riding horses across the open steppe, only to realize rather quickly that perhaps it had been a terrible mistake. But behind all those adventures, there is also some very serious work. Her PhD explores critical thinking and creativity in a future where artificial superintelligence might become so powerful that we start relating to it almost as a new god. And that's the moment I chose.
So I'm not so much against also psychological help or interaction with AI, you have to be you need this strong awareness of where you stand and what you want from it, and then you can work with it. And in respect to Krog, yes, if we have a brain implant, then it will be even more difficult. So I actually compared it. This is my comparison with God. Like if you're praying, then you're praying to God, and if you have this brain implant, it will be like talking also to some higher intelligence, and you have no idea anymore what is you and what is this artificial intelligence. And this will be very dangerous because we as humans create this artificial intelligence and it starts to optimize itself, and then we do not know where it goes. So here comes where is this critical interaction with AI if we're not able to understand which part we are or what we are.
And then our grand finale with Andreas. We are so similar in so many ways, and he inspired us so much. It became a grand finale in another way too, because Andreas connected so many of the themes from this summer and somehow brought us all the way back to the first episode with Pontus, community, and what we can achieve together.
They would come at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and they want to play with me. And we were a group of usually like 5 to 10 kids, just, doing things together in the area. We renovated a little old house that was falling apart in our backyard, and we found materials and we renovated it. And I was just 5 years old, but we were doing this, and we had our little clubhouse there in our backyard, and they became my family and my community. And I think that was my first. I imagine that's my first experience of community, like a real community and belonging and friendship. And I think I learned so much there. And I don't know if that's the reason, but all my life I have always wanted to build community and have community and belong to communities, and feel the real deep relationships with people.
Same day I recorded this last conversation with Andreas, I went for a walk with Nala. The grain was gone, the field she had been jumping through all the summer had been harvested. And she was so surprised. Summer was ending and another season was beginning. And perhaps that's what these 9 stories taught me this summer. We all go through different seasons, transitions. Some we choose, some arrived far too early, some are beautiful, some can be brutal. And perhaps we are more connected than we sometimes realize. I admire each one of you who gave your time and so generously shared your life story with me and with everyone watching. After my conversation with Henning, I told him what a gift you have just created for your daughter, and maybe one day, even for your daughter's children. Give it to her to watch. He told me later that he already had, and that she was so moved. I know Marie-Louise showed her conversation to her mother, and that it opened wonderful conversations between them. And maybe that's when I understood that these conversations had become something more than I imagined when we started this summer. I laughed a lot, and yes, I cried after some of these conversations, but never out of sadness, but out of admiration. Pontus, Marie-Louise, Tina, Aminah, Steve, Leonardo, Henning, Ida, Andreas, you 9 wonderful people, thank you for trusting me with your stories. Thank you for making this summer so special and for changing my life. Viva a vida!